Greetings and welcome. Today we are looking at marketing, and this is a subject or a concept that we ought to understand for purposes of the modules in business management, for purposes of modules in marketing. So it is important that we fully understand this concept. Just to define marketing, many people confuse marketing with selling or with advertising, and many times they end up thinking that these concepts basically mean the same. But it is important at this stage to understand that selling, advertising, those are just aspects which are actually part of marketing, but they are not basically marketing. So, marketing itself actually consists of management tasks and decisions that are directed at successfully meeting the opportunities and threats in a dynamic environment by effectively developing and transferring a need-satisfying market offering to consumers in such a way that the objectives of the business, the consumer, and society will be achieved. So it consists of management tasks, that which management actually do, and also decisions that are directly or that are directed at successfully meeting opportunities and threats that are encountered in the business environment. So opportunities and threats, normally those they come from the external environment, external business environment. Because in the internal environment, that's where we normally focus on the threat, on the weaknesses and strengths. So this is done by effectively developing and transferring a need satisfying market offering. This market offering can be in the form of a product or a service, which is then used by consumers to meet their own needs or to satisfy their own wants. But this should be done in a way that the objectives of the business, the objectives of the consumer, and also of the society are actually achieved. So it's not like you just do it, whether it costs how much, whether the business benefits or it makes a loss, you just do it. That's not marketing. When we are marketing, when managers are considering marketing, the, the objectives of the business, of which one of those objectives, I'm sure we all understand that profitability remains one of the key objectives of any business. So we'll also look at the marketing concept, which is basically the ethical code to which the marketing task is performed. These guides how marketing is actually conducted or how marketing is actually done. So it guides marketing practitioners, marketing managers on how they have to go about marketing. So the marketing concept or this ethical code also directs all marketing decisions about products, the distribution methods of those products, marketing communication concerning those products, and also price determination for such products. And there are four key principles of the marketing concept. One of those principles is the principle of profitability. That when we are marketing, we should always remember that the business ought to make a profit. So this task ought to be done in a way that the business will remain profitable. We ought to look at it in trying to increase sales and trying to reduce costs so that the business may remain profitable. There is also the principle of consumer orientation, whereby the main focus should be on the final user of the product. The main focus should be on the final user of the product, because here there is need to satisfy the needs, and the needs that we are mainly focusing on are the needs of the final user of the product or the final user of that particular service. So there's that need to focus on the consumer. At this stage, it is important also to realize that there's a difference between consumers and customers. There's need to realize the difference between consumers and customers. So in terms of the 4 key principles of the marketing concept, we focus on the principle of consumer orientation. That managers, marketers ought to focus on the needs of the consumer, the final user of that particular product or of that particular service. There is also the principle of social responsibility. Uh, it's a basic assumption that we make that at this stage you should have covered corporate social responsibility and you would have understood the market drivers of corporate social responsibility. That organizations, when they engage in corporate social responsibility, one of the reasons why they do it is actually market oriented. That they increase their sales, they gain trust of the community, they gain trust of the market, they get to be known by the market. Those people that they are prepared to sell their products to, and such people also have the means to do so and are willing to use the product. So when you engage in corporate social responsibility activities, normally you benefit. Normally you benefit. So we are saying organizations ought to remember that they have to give back to the communities, they have to plow back to the communities, they also have to contribute to the common good in communities. And in doing so, that will also help them to gain that possibility of increasing sales for their products or services, also even reducing costs. So if you read on market drivers of corporate social responsibility, you will actually realize that organizations engage in CSR activities in order to reduce costs and also in order to increase their sales. Then there's also the principle of organizational integration. To say, as an organization, this issue of marketing should not be left only to one particular department or one particular function, but it's something that should be done by the entire organization. Every properly planned, well organized, and it's done by the organization for the organization. So, in as much as the tasks themselves may be left for a particular function to spearhead the process, it should always be known that top level managers should play a role, middle level managers should also play a role. Even those lower level managers and workers should also know exactly what is expected of them in as far as marketing is concerned. In as far as marketing is concerned. We will also look at market research, which is concerned with gathering information from stakeholders in the market, be it customers, suppliers, even our competitors. So it is important for managers to understand that information is needed in an organization and it is needed to manage a business effectively. If you have information, you can use information to understand uh, the relevant market segments. We will also look at market segmentation. So information can be used to understand the market segments. It is also important for planning purposes and for controlling, for both planning and controlling. So if you are to set targets, setting goals, information is very important. Then for controlling, I'm sure at this stage you all understand that the first step in the control process is actually planning. So information remains important even in the control, for control purposes. Information also helps in decision making. You cannot make proper decisions if you do not have sufficient information. This therefore means also if you have wrong information and you believe that it is true, you can use it to make decisions, and those decisions may not benefit the organization or the business. So it is important to have correct information that you gain through proper and ethical market research. So the process of market research, we will do another recording or another video where we will discuss the process and how it ought to be done. But at this stage, it is important to understand that marketing research can actually be done for problem identification in the organization, or it can also be done for problem solving. Come up with solutions to problems that have already been identified. So in the next presentation, we will focus more on consumer behavior. What affects consumer behavior, what is it, how can we study it? We will focus on that in the next video. So for purposes of those, for those that may want to read further, which we always encourage, I urge you to read a book which was written by Erasmus and others, preferably the 11th edition. The title of the book is Introduction to Business Management. If you read that book, you will have a better understanding of what we have discussed in this session. There are many other textbooks also for marketing that you can read to further your understanding in this particular subject or in this particular concept. Thank you so much. Thank you.